Hello. Today I'm going to change things slightly and I'm going to talk about reading more than the art of writing. And I'm going to talk about why I'm passionate about my belief that children should read scary stories. When I was 11, I read The Amityville Horror and Salem's Lot. I didn't read them under the covers. I didn't read them hidden away somewhere. I read them out in the open because I was already hungry for the strange, the eerie, the unexplainable, and I've never stopped loving it. I now write horror and weird fiction without gore, without cruelty, but I still try to write stories that get under the skin, that linger and unsettle, because scary stories, the right kind of scary stories, don't damage children. They prepare them. They give shape to feelings that are often go unnamed or undefined. They help kids build emotional strength, resilience. Weird fiction in particular shows them that the world is not this ordinary place, that it's full of mystery, and that it's okay not to have all the answers. Now, let me tell you why this matters and how stories like The Elementals, yes, I'm doing The Elementals again, From a Buick 8, Duma Key, The Fog, and even Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca will help children grow into stronger, wiser human beings. Fear isn't the problem. Isolation is. Scary stories let kids explore fear safely. They're not in real danger, but they get to feel like they are. And that's how resilience is born. When the monster is in the story and not in their bedroom, they learn they can survive the feeling, that they can turn the page and keep going. And some stories do more than frighten. They recognize something in kids that most adult narratives ignore. That children already live with mystery. They already feel dread. They already sense the hidden shape of things that are left unsaid. Weird fiction in particular is fluent in this. So I'm thinking now about India McRae in Michael McDowell's The Elementals. She's just a girl, young, overlooked. I think she's about 13, but she's the only one who truly sees. Her family retreats to an old beach estate where one house has been abandoned and is slowly being swallowed by sand. Something's wrong there. Something is present, but the adults won't face it. And India, what she doesn't do is rationalize. She doesn't deny, she notices. And most importantly, she believes herself. This is what I think scary stories give children. The ability to trust their instincts when the adults won't. India isn't protected by a weapon. She's protected by attention. Her fear doesn't paralyze her. It informs her. And in a very real way, she survives because she remains awake to what's happening. I think in so many ways she's one of horror fiction's best models for a child learning to navigate a world where adults are blind to the truth. That, in a sense, what we might call weird knowing, is more than just fear. It's perception, sensitivity, intuition. Horror stories help children name it. So in Stephen King's From a Buick 8, a boy, or a teenager, as a late teenager, discovers that his father's police troop is guarding something unexplainable. And that is a Buick that isn't a car. It's a gateway to something incomprehensible. No one fully understands it. No one can destroy it. But they live with it over generations. For the boy, it's a lesson. Sometimes we inherit mystery, and we can inherit trauma. Epigenetics, anyone? Sometimes we're stewards of something we can't solve. And that doesn't make us powerless, it makes us human. That's one of the great gifts of weird fiction. It doesn't try to fix the unfixable. It gives kids permission to live with ambiguity. It gives us permission to live with ambiguity. So I want to go on to the ghosts that we do inherit. I'm going to talk about John Carpenter's The Fog. A town's history has been sanitized, whitewashed, much like the Western world has in terms of the enslavement of African people. The town's history has been sanitized and whitewashed until the literal fog rolls in, carrying the dead with it. What's hidden comes back. And the children, those growing up inside this forgotten violence of Antonio Bay, are the ones who will have to face what their elders refused to, what their elders caused. Sins of the fathers. This is Gothic storytelling as moral architecture, I think, and it tells young viewers, just because you ignore it doesn't mean it's going to disappear. And if you do ignore it, then maybe you'll be the one who has to name it. And similarly, in Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, the past haunts the present so thoroughly that it erases identity. The young, unnamed protagonist enters a grand house and slowly comes undone under the ghostly weight of her predecessor. She's constantly told she's too sensitive, she's too insecure, she's too imaginative, and yet she's right. And like India McRae, the narrator of Rebecca senses what others suppress. She has no name, no voice at first, but her journey's one of learning to see clearly, no matter how deeply the house wants to obscure the truth. And what does a story like Rebecca teach children? That intuition is valuable, that silence can be violent, that just because someone older than you denies your experience doesn't mean it's invalid or not real. In Duma Key, another Stephen King book, we're given a different kind of horror, the horror of trauma, of reinvention, of what happens when pain opens a door in your mind and something else comes through. I mentioned epigenetics earlier. Could Duma Key be relatable to the pains of puberty? Yes, I think so. Even though the protagonist is a 50-something-year-old man. The protagonist is recovering from a brain injury and a deep personal loss. He begins to paint. And the painting, his art, becomes prophetic and ultimately dangerous. And it's a story about creativity as power, not as a cure or a curse, but a force, a way to process what might otherwise drown you. And that's a really powerful metaphor for kids, that their imaginations aren't weaknesses, that drawing, writing, inventing, creating, those things might save them. It saved me, for sure. And this is especially true for kids who don't yet have language for what they're going through. Often horror stories are the language. Now, it's important to say, and as a teacher I'm acutely aware of this, not all horror is for kids. There's horror that relies on gore, on shock, on sexual violence. That work might have a place in the genre, but not in a child's hands. But weird horror, psychological horror, atmospheric horror, that's exactly what young people are built for. They already live with invisible fears. They're already haunted by things no one explains to them. Give them stories that echo that, but provide resolution, insight, or at least companions. And that can be life-changing. Those stories show the child that fear isn't there to be avoided. It's there to be understood. As a trainee counsellor, I often reference the motto that fear is where the learning is. So let's learn. Scary stories teach kids how to recognize danger without being consumed by it, to trust their instincts, to accept the unknown without needing it to be solved, to confront family secrets and emotional shadows, to use art and creativity as a survival method, and I think possibly most importantly, to believe their own emotional responses even when adults dismiss them. And true, these stories might give them nightmares once in a while, but while the nightmare fades, the legacy of these stories don't. They give kids tools. They show them they aren't alone. So let them read the dark. Let them walk with Duma Key into a house full of sand and silence. Let them listen to the foghorn of Antonio Bay. Let them hear the name Rebecca echoing down the halls of Mandalay. Let them paint on Duma Key, and let them stare straight down right into the grille of a Buick 8 that shouldn't exist. Because when we give children access to fear in a safe, meaningful way, we don't scare them, we prepare them. We don't make them afraid. We teach them how to face fear and to walk through it. Let them read dark so they can find their own light.